You're about to send off the important email, pitch the idea or post on Instagram, and suddenly your pulse goes up. Your palms get sweaty and 2 words land hard in your head. Oh, shit. Most of us take that as a warning to stop. But what if that feeling is just your body getting excited, saying, yeah, go for it? We get exposed to around 3,000 commercial messages every day, and the next day we remember 2. 2! So here's the question. Are you one of those 2, or are you part of the 2,998 that disappears? Big Dreams and Little Things is the podcast for creative freelancers and solo entrepreneurs who want to move forward one small step at a time. You make the world richer and more colorful, and we're the community that helps you keep creating. Welcome back to Big Dreams and Little Things. I'm Karina Camp.
I'm Maria Vronsky-Ellis.
Today, we're going to talk about being consciously uncomfortable, stretching boundaries and exceeding yourself beyond your own limitations. How does that feel, Maria?
It's a mixed feeling, really, because from prior experience, I know it's when I'm pushing myself into the uncomfortable zone that I know I'll get results and I'll grow, but it's not always that easy.
And we are broadcasting on video now. Our audio is coming out Friday, and then the YouTube will come out on the Tuesday after that, so every other week as well. Today, I am wearing green. Do you know why?
It's St. Paddy's Day.
It is St. Patrick's Day. So we are sending out a cheer to all our Irish listeners today. And I wear green in your tribute. Today, we have someone with us. We have a guest. He has turned that oh shit feeling that we addressed in the intro into a creative superpower. His name is Patrik Lindkvist. He's a creative director, author, lecturer at Berg School of Communication, which is one of Sweden's top creative schools. And he just published a new book called, well, you might have guessed it. It's called Oh Shit, 115 Thoughts on Magic Communication. And it's packed with ideas about why the uncomfortable choice is almost always the right one.
Patrik is also the mind behind many creative campaigns from big companies such as Coca-Cola and Fisherman's Friend, but also smaller projects such as some of yours, Karina.
Absolutely. Over the years, he has done album covers, logos, and beautiful artwork for me, and he is great at looking into my brain.
So, welcome, Patrik, to Big Dreams and Little Things.
Woohoo! Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. What a lovely introduction to hear.
Well, we have to start by asking, was there an oh shit moment when you said yes to being on this podcast?
I haven't done too many podcasts before, some interviews, but not in this format. So yeah, it was a bit of an oh shit moment, I would say.
That's a good thing, right?
Yes, absolutely.
You grew up in Borlänge, Dalarna, deep in the Swedish countryside. And then in 1995, you packed your bags about the same time as we did, Maria. And you moved to Texas to study advertising and graphic design at Sam Houston State University. Me and Maria went to Boston, so we know it's a pretty serious oh shit moment for a young Swede. Can you tell us a little bit, what was that like?
Yeah, that was one of the most uncomfortable things I've done in my life, I'd say, up to that point. But it was also very exciting. It was just sort of a liberation to actually be able to do what I was interested in, which was drawing and creating art, doing visual work of different kinds. I never lived anywhere else but in Borlänge, and I didn't know that much about Texas, more than cowboy movies and whatever I'd seen in Hollywood films of different kinds.
Dallas, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Oil, and big hats and oil.
So I flew there and was dropped down into a steaming hot Houston airport. I didn't know anyone, pretty much. I didn't have that security system that I was used to having growing up, and I had to figure things out on my own. And that was both scary and exciting because it was a way of growing up pretty fast. And then, of course, just taking classes, learning how to paint in oil or aqua media or doing graphic design or sculptures. It was more like just having fun while going to school and being graded on that. That was an amazing experience. Up to that point, the only thing that I had received in sort of attention of my artwork was, oh, that's cool. And then they looked somewhere else. It was just something that you did in your spare time. And now all of a sudden you were scrutinizing everything you did and people were discussing it in in depth, and you had to think about it in depth as well.
And also the fact that you're surrounded with people that are just like you, especially I think when you're doing something with the arts, right? Because usually you're the only one.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you have all these people doing the same thing.
And also the yes, you can do it feeling of it all.
That was one of the biggest thing I thought with people being so excited for you, experience that, saying that, well, oh, wow, this is awesome. You should do more of this. And even the teachers and people around you, everybody was just so supportive. I didn't realize people could be like that. And I love that about that American mentality. That's the part I love about it.
Well, you've been training for years. You've been doing something for years. Of course, you're going to do it well. And it's actually okay to say that.
And it's also okay to say, I want to do this professionally. This is not just my hobby. This is something that I really want to achieve. But let's dig a little bit deeper into Patrik.
Yes, you opened the book really strongly, and I love the best job application story.
Yes.
You call it the anti-application because instead of listing your achievements, right, you write about your flaws, your needs for validation, and that you don't do your dishes very often. Tell us what happened. Why did you feel the need to write this job application like this?
I was interested in working in an advertising agency that I'd sort of paid attention to, and they didn't have any openings really. It was just something I sent off spontaneously. I just thought that there are so many people writing, telling them about all their positive sides and everything that they're good at. It becomes kind of conventional and expected, and it's hard to stand out. So I wanted to find a way to show some of my personality in it without necessarily just pointing out that I was good at something, and instead poking fun at myself and just making them want to know more about me rather than telling them everything. But it was fun because they called back and said that this was the best application they'd ever seen, that they'd ever read. So I was sort of excited about this just because of that, and happy about it. But then I didn't really think about it for a long time. But when I started my own business in 2013, I was starting to be more active on LinkedIn. And most of what everybody does is to just brag about what they do and what they've achieved. And I thought it would be fun to see how this application would be received if I posted it on LinkedIn. So I wrote a post where I started saying 10 years ago, I wrote the best job application I've ever written. And then I did this anti-application. And I've never received so much positive attention as I did from that. I think I had over 2,000 likes and 200 positive comments. And I was offered jobs straight in the comment section. And it was just such an incredible experience. I think that it showed how hungry people was of reading something different, and something where I sort of put myself on the line, where I showed vulnerability and openness and tried to be a little fun. So I think that's sort of one of the parts of the magic behind it, is to be uncomfortable when you're presenting yourself or a company, but in a way that makes people like you anyways.
And it takes confidence to be vulnerable. So you were showing your confidence even though you weren't writing them on the nose, because otherwise you wouldn't write that, right?
No, just the way I ended the whole application too. These are probably all of my negative qualities, but if you want to hear about my positive qualities, I'd love to come and tell you about them. I think that was alluding to that I actually thought I had positive qualities too.
There's another story in the book also about applying for a job that I think every freelancer and creative will recognize. You were in a job interview and your interviewers left the room to get coffee. Remember this?
Yes, I remember it.
So you spotted the notes from your first interview. I guess this was a callback then. And there were 5 words that changed everything. Do you want to tell us what they said?
Sure. I just looked over and I saw this notebook, and upside down I could read the words. I don't know what's the English word for mesig. A little lame but good. A little
good but a bit wimpy.
Wimpy, yeah. And that just clicked in my head. Then I just let my shoulders down and I tried to relax and be confident and not be wimpy, but just be, open and honest about what I thought and how I felt. And that's something they liked. And I did the best interview I had ever done, I think, because I let go of this desire to be perfect. And instead, I just showed me. And so I got the job.
reading through your book, actually, I hate calling arrangers, for gigs, promoting myself. But I did it 3 times since I read your book. And I was like, this is an oh shit moment. Go for
Yes.
it.
It just makes it a bit more fun as well. If say, oh shit, if you actually have a terminology for it rather than having that fear, because it is a bit of fear in it. And if you just call it then, this is my oh shit moment, it brings forward momentum. It makes you actually do something. So it's a really clever way to just the fact to call it that.
If you can put a name to it, if you can put a word for it, then you can identify it as something that's worthwhile instead of something that's scary or uncomfortable. The fear of mistakes is what's driving so much inactivity and just staying put. Getting over that fear of making mistakes, I think, is huge.
It's massive. And that's what's the difference between regretting things, right, in life and not regretting. Because if you try, you've done everything in your power to try something and do something, you can't regret anything later.
It's like, what would you like to do if you weren't afraid? For me, it's important that what I'm doing that is making me uncomfortable is something that I want and I feel excited about. So it's not just about pushing myself to do something that's worthwhile.
I mean, just throwing yourself out of a cliff might be fun, the first few seconds, but it's not just fear for fear's sake.
No, that's it.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the core idea behind this book? What makes communication magical instead of forgettable?
I was feeling pretty frustrated with the work that I was doing. I felt that it didn't really live up to its potential. So I started doing a lot of research. I started reading books and scientific reports, and I was listening to lectures and just really diving deep into what it is that makes communication so incredibly impactful and effective at times and not very effective in other times. And as I was doing this, I ran across an image on Facebook, of all places, that made me realize exactly what it was all about. And it was an image of a small circle in the lower left corner saying your comfort zone. And in the upper right corner, there was a bigger circle saying where the magic happens. And it just hit me so hard then and there. And I'd seen that picture before and I'd seen it afterwards, but I just saw with such clarity that it wasn't when I was doing things that looked the same as everything else. It was when I stepped out of that comfort zone and moved into that much larger circle where the magic happened. And as I looked in the world around me as well, I saw all the campaigns that I'd seen that had this major impact for companies and organizations of different kinds. It was out there. It wasn't safe. It wasn't conventional. It wasn't comfortable. And that was what the book was about, but that's also what the company was that I started and that I called Magic Circle. It's because I wanted to be in that magic circle. So that's the core of that first book.
I sit here and think about today, everything is so polished. You can polish everything. And to me, it tends to get quite boring a lot of the time. And especially now with AI, everything is picture perfect. There's not a little spot anywhere on anyone. And I wonder where that will lead us. I like a little dirt. I like when it is a little bit uncomfortable. But that also, of course, takes courage to step out there, to push yourself.
One of the moments that really stuck for me in your book, which I thought was so funny and so brilliant, was the ad agency that was working with British Rail, and they were going to go in and do the presentation, and it was just really horrible and dirty. I thought that was such a brilliant way of showing, well, this is what life is like for your customers. This is the real, not this glossy, fantastic train running on time, smooth, clean, That's what we connect to in a totally different way, the rawness. But it's difficult today as well, I find, especially with social media, because anyone can do it and everything is so polished. It's so oversaturated, I feel, as well. And that's something you talk about as well.
I think the main thing really is that it isn't true. I mean, it's just not the truth, right? And everybody thinks advertising is about hiding the truth almost. But I think that when you're being truthful, then it becomes real and authentic and genuine. And it's something that rings true in everybody's ears instead of just showing up these overly polished surface representations of your company.
No, I can't connect with it.
No, I listened to the radio program So where they do trend spotting every week, they invite 3 people to do trend spotting. And there was a journalist called Gunnar, and he was talking about, if you remember, Ecce Homo, which was a portrait of Jesus in Borja, Spain. It was starting to sort of fall apart, and they needed to do a restoration of this, but they didn't really have a professional person to do it. So they allowed a hobby artist to try to do this restoration, and it just failed completely.
Oh, no.
And it became world famous because instead of looking like a person, the portrait of Jesus, it sort of looked like a monkey. So it became known as the monkey Jesus. And it was the biggest mistake they could ever have, the biggest embarrassment this city could ever have. But as it turned out, Borja apparently had some financial problems. People were struggling economically in the city, but this portrait made so many tourists want to come and see it. So the whole city just blossomed from all the tourism that it attracted. And so he was talking about how mistakes are so valuable to us and how often we try to avoid mistakes. And I think that is so powerful because it's our failures and our mistakes and those cracks in the surface, that's what makes us interesting.
Isn't it Leonard Cohen that says it's in the cracks the sun comes in?
Yeah, that's it. That's in your book as well.
Yeah. So we get back to start scrappy.
Yeah.
But you also mentioned, was it Chinese or Japanese pottery? Well, they actually painted over with gold to show the cracks. And I think that's so beautiful as well.
It's highlight the cracks just to show the imperfections, and that's what's more valuable than the perfect pottery.
For trend spotting, being in the business you're in, for artists and creatives, what should we use to promote ourselves? Let's say social media. Is it storytelling? Is it, imperfect videos? What do you see coming up on the horizon?
Social media is incredible because it gives you the space to show yourself. There is, just like in any kind of communication, that there's this desire to sort of try to look like everybody else. So everybody's filming themselves in the same angle as everyone else. They're making the same faces and expressions. I think that whatever is your form, where your personality is shining through the most, I think that's the form you should take. If you're great at drawing, then show drawings. And if you're great at speaking to a camera, then show yourself in front of a camera speaking. Or if you're great at singing, use that. For me, I think my way of expressing myself in social media and on LinkedIn is writing these oh shit ideas. And I think that's my mode of expression, even though I sometimes do imagery as well. And maybe that's what I should do more of because that's what I work with most of all. But I found that to be the most impactful way for me to put myself out into the world. I think that you as an individual, if you're a freelancer, an artist of any kind, look at what you feel is your strongest point to get your personality across.
And reading your book, it did give me ideas as well. I mean, Karina and I think I mentioned, I think it was last time we recorded a podcast, we should do podcast the musical, social media the musical, and maybe that's what we need to do more, we actually start singing, doing songs. Every week we should do a song, a short verse or a short, phrase or whatever, rather than just talking, because that's where I feel lost, because I'm very private, I'm very introvert. So for me to show who I truly am just on social media feels so unnatural and something I would just never do. I force myself, but I still yet don't feel like I can show, I can't open myself completely. And maybe singing, maybe that would be a better way.
When I think about it as sharing or giving, then it's easier for me. I'm sharing this idea, or I'm spotlighting this creative, or I want to help you with this, maybe through my singing or through whatever. It's that way communication instead of just, come by my course.
It's not even, helping. It's more like, I'm just like you. I need this too,
I think, like you said, with so many people associate advertising with buy this, get this. You have to sort of be the salesperson that is just constantly pitching and trying to put things onto people. And if you look at the research too, that is, of course, you need some of that. You need to show them that this is the price of what I'm offering. What you see in research is that what's much more important is to create some sort of emotional connection. Like that's what brand building is all about. making people
Yes.
feel that they understand who you are and what you stand for, and that there's some sort of emotional connection to your brand. That is so much more important than just saying what you're selling. About 60% of your marketing communications should be brand building long term, where you're just trying to create these emotional connections. And 40% should be you telling people what you sell and giving them offers of different kinds.
Something that you wrote in the beginning of your book as well that I definitely going to take with me and do for us is to dare to ask our audience stupid questions.
A colleague of mine who was almost obsessive about this. Whenever there was anything he didn't understand, it could be any kind of meeting with, the CEO of a global company almost, he would ask directly if there was something he didn't understand. It was usually about some term or some abbreviation of some sort. And when they started explaining, they couldn't even themselves explain what it was because it was just something they're used to saying without really thinking about it.
Right.
And so
Hmm.
him asking that stupid question really made people think of him as someone that cared, someone that was concerned with understanding what it was that they meant.
Unbelievable. Miscommunication.
Yes, because they were afraid to seem stupid to one another, they weren't asking what the words meant. And when they did that,
Yeah.
finally everything just became clear and they started working
Wow.
much better together. And I think that is
Mm.
so important, to not be so concerned with sounding intelligent at every point
Yeah.
in time.
Yeah.
In every episode of Big Dreams and Little Things, we also go a little bit into science. And you do that in your book too. So we are going to spotlight a bit of what you're saying and a little bit more. So what Patrik is describing, that oh shit feeling as a compass, lines up perfectly with something the psychologist Susan Jeffers wrote about in her classic book, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. This book, this one is in Swedish, but it's available in English as well. An amazing book. I can't recommend it enough. It has sold over 15 million copies. She studied fear for decades and found some core truths that every creative needs to hear. 1. The fear stays with you for as long as you keep growing. So if you're waiting to feel fearless before you pitch that bold idea, you'll wait forever. The oh shit feeling means you're alive and pushing boundaries. 2. The only way to move past the fear is to do the thing you're afraid of. Reading about it, thinking about it, planning around it, none of that removes the fear, only action does. Or, as Patrik puts it in his book, why wait? 3. Everyone feels it. Everyone. Your favorite artist, the most successful freelancer you follow, they all feel the fear. The ones who thrive are the ones who do it anyway. 4. Pushing through fear is less frightening than living with the helplessness of playing it safe. This is the big one. The safe choice feels comfortable in the moment, but it comes with its own slow, grinding anxiety. The feeling that you're capable of so much more, and still you're choosing to stay small. Patrik, in your book you write about Colleen de Courcy and her tattooed mantra, your faith needs to be greater than your fear. What do you think she means by that?
It's about being optimistic about what you're capable of and what you can do if you just keep going. And even though you're afraid, you still do it. And that it has to be the winner in the struggle between the two. You have to believe more than you're afraid. You have to fool yourself to believe and to trust that you can actually accomplish things, even though it may be kind of frightening to try to do it.
Thank you.
Patrik also writes about the von Restorff effect, a study from 1933 that showed we remember what stands out from its surroundings. If you see a row of random letter combinations and one number in the middle, you'll remember the number. So, why does almost all communication look exactly the same? Why do all car ads show cars on winding roads? Why do all job applications list the same achievements?
And the answer is loss aversion. We're wired to avoid losses more than we seek gains. When we're young, we have less to lose, so we take more risks. But as our careers grow, we accumulate a client's reputation, income, and we become more afraid of losing them. So in your 20s, you're like, let's go party till 5 and then board a plane to Hong Kong. But in your 40s, you're more like, hell no.
But there is a beautiful paradox here. To be uncomfortable in your creativity, you need to feel safe enough to try. That's what community gives you. That's what accountability partnerships give you. A safe launchpad for uncomfortable leaps. Gogol's project Aristotle, that we have mentioned here before, found exactly this. The single most important factor in high performing teams is psychological safety. Teams where people feel safe to voice wild ideas and make mistakes produce the most innovative work. Where do you find your safe base to take creative risks from, Patrik?
Like you were saying here, and with that Google project as well, that it's when you feel safe and you feel comfortable with the people that you're working with, and you feel that you're has some sort of base in what you believe in. I think a creative philosophy is great to have when you're trying on these new uncomfortable things, because then you can believe that you will succeed in doing them, even though it is uncomfortable. Finding people that you can do things together with is crucial, because first of all, you don't know everything in the world, and there are people that are much better than you at doing things. And so finding those people to connect with and get the help from and get the support from, it's just so important and sort of game changing, because it makes you push those ideas even further, and you can help others push their ideas further as well. So finding that group, but also I find it interesting to try to sort of change the physical space you're in. Usually when I work in an agency, we're sitting in a conference room trying to come up with ideas, but conference rooms, I think, are usually the worst places on earth to try to come up with ideas in. But I think it's much better to move to, a coffee shop, or I used to go to a museum and to their cafe and sit there and with people and have creative sessions. At one point, we actually went to one of those ferries going to Finland with a client, and we ended up sitting in the bar in the daytime, coming up with all these great ideas, but just in a different environment where you're not bringing in so many thoughts and feelings that are connected to performance or achievement or anything, where you can just sort of relax and be yourself.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that say they get their best ideas in the shower or while they're
Yeah,
running or that kind of thing. I
absolutely. Yeah.
love to work in a cafe. It
Yeah,
really
cafes are good.
works for me.
I want you to tell us, how do you make such a boring thing as ventilation hip? We talked about this briefly earlier. That's how I was so blown away when you introduced this to us. And how do you do this in advertising?
Well, first of all, Swedish Ventilation came to us and asked us to help them create interest in ventilation systems. And this was during Corona, the COVID. So they wanted people to pay more attention to it. But they were also saying, we're so aware of how boring we are. How can we create interest around this? And so we started looking into what ventilation was and how people related to it. And we started thinking about what the physical function of ventilation is. And we started thinking also about what it is that made ventilation so boring, because the image you have of it is, these big pipes in the ceilings, or these humming things that are going on around us. But when we looked into what ventilation and good ventilation does, it's just so important. It affects our health, economy. I mean, if you're having to heat up a building more than you have to, or cool it down more than you have to, then it affects that. It affects the way we perform in school or at work. And there's just so many things, and also how much allergies we have because of poor ventilation. So we realized this is something that's incredibly important to people, really, if they just sort of get beyond this hump of thinking about those pipes in the ceiling, right? So how could we make people feel more about it? And we came across this definition of what ventilation is, and it said it's taking bad air and removing it from the inside, and then replacing it with fresh air. And if you look at the breathing system for us as people, it has the exact same function. So we decided to make this comparison, that the ventilation system is the house's way of breathing, basically. And if the house doesn't feel well, you won't feel well either. So then we started pointing out these ventilation ducts on buildings everywhere, and saying that this is where the ventilation is, and make sure it works well so you can work well or feel good too. And thinking about the COVID time, we were all so incredibly aware of our breathing. It was life and death, basically. So That was something that we felt emotionally made ventilation much more relatable and something that people could sense and understand why it was important. I think where you can create that emotional connection and explain something in a way that feels powerful is so much more than just explaining the functionality of something. I think that's where that became impactful, where people felt strongly about it because of it.
Yeah, I love that, that the ventilation is the breathing of the house. Then it makes it, instantly relatable to me.
Yeah, you can identify it with it completely differently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you made your beautiful drawings too on the buildings.
And that was a fun part of the book, actually, to have
Yeah, I was
the
going to say,
opportunity
yeah.
to draw
Yeah.
illustrations. I just sort of seized the moment and, I don't know, probably went overboard.
And there's one drawing of your wife, Monica, in there. I know Monica as well, of course, because the two of you met in my singing class.
That's right. That's right.
Yes. And I am
That's
in the
special.
book. I was so proud. I was in
Yeah.
the book. You're a beautiful songwriter.
Thank
I
you.
remember Sweetness,
Yes,
right?
yes. The gift to
Yes.
my wife.
Yeah,
Aw.
beautiful song. You say the singing lessons taught you, as you say in your book, that the key to singing well is finding the balance between relaxation and tension. And that is so true. Hold the note too tight and you sound like you're screaming for help, and too loose and there's no power. And you say that you apply that to everything, even communication, presentations, and even relationships with clients. How do you do that?
If I'm painting and I'm holding the painting brush too hard, it's hard to be loose and get it to look good, or the pencil when I'm drawing. And the same way with meetings with clients. If you tense up, you become that wimpy person, right? But if instead you know what to say and how to say it, it doesn't matter if you make mistakes because you know the subject that you're talking about. You're relaxed enough to sometimes tell jokes or say something that's sort of out of place, and you can be yourself. And it's the same thing with, like I said, with singing or painting or playing tennis. The worst thing you can do when you play tennis is to tighten up, because then you won't make a single shot. So by relaxing and letting your personality shine through, you can talk about ventilation. It makes people interested in what you're talking about.
I wonder, how important is it for you to have people around you when you're creating that pushes you to stay uncomfortable?
I think it's really important, as long as they know how to have ideas together and not tense up and start critiquing the first thing they do. You can come up with ideas freely together. And the more people you bring into a room, the more different perspectives you will get. If there are too many people, then there's always this thing that happens that you might not feel comfortable expressing a crazy idea. Two or three or four, I think it's perfect, because you cannot have all the perspectives yourself. And my experiences makes me have a certain perspective, while someone else's experiences will bring in a completely different view on whatever it is that you're trying to come up with ideas about. But I also think it's important that you're able to come up with ideas and think about ideas on your own, and then you can join back with the group and bounce those ideas off, because not everybody's the most comfortable with coming up with ideas in group.
I have this idea, this image, I guess you get it from TV when you see the ad agencies, there's a group and everyone is like creatives throwing in ideas. Is that the way it really is?
Most of the time when you're coming up with ideas, you're sitting in silence. I certainly do these brainstorming sessions where you really push yourself to push out ideas, but I think more often than not, it's more about you sitting together for 1 or 2 hours and, you know, sometimes talking, sometimes being quiet. I remember feeling very uncomfortable the first time I had to work in a Google document where you were sort of sharing the same document. I was like, no, I want my document. I want to be in control of my document. But
Yeah. Yes.
sharing files, that's
Right.
dangerous. People are going to mess things up. But I think maybe in the past 20 or 30 years, that's the way you work. Basically, you have those tools at your disposal in a different way than you did when I grew up. So you're forced into teamwork in a different way, which I think is great.
That's why our accountability sessions are so good. I feel that you
Yeah.
keep your autonomy, but you still get to
Mm,
share and get input.
mm.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you can decide whether you want it or not.
Yes, I wouldn't have wanted to write this book in a shared document, but just other things I think it's perfect for. But yeah, and also to have your autonomy, but then also to be able to have the groups setting. I've done quite a bit of research myself over the past 10, 12 years, where I have these sort of groups where I talk to people and I gain insights.
Can you explain the sofa groups? How do you do that?
It's a kind of a focus group. But the thing about focus groups, I was always so frustrated with it because every time the results that came back were always very strange and odd and very rational. When you're sitting in this closed off conference room and it looks like you're being, in one of those police interrogation rooms, and everybody in the focus groups knows someone sitting on the other side of that mirror, it just makes the whole situation unnatural, that you start being unnatural yourself and you're saying things that you're really not thinking in a natural way. And there's one guy, John Steele is his name, he's a strategist, and he's done so many of these focus groups. He just concluded that trying to figure out what people are like by studying them in that type of focus group is sort of like trying to figure out how monkeys behave in the wild by looking at monkeys sitting in a cage. So I wanted to get away from that. And so I started this thing called sofa groups, where I gathered people in natural home environments instead, in like sofas in their living rooms, where they were as relaxed and as natural as they possibly could be. And we didn't ask these rational questions, not to begin with at least, but we more asked about, what are you interested in? What do you think is important in life? What do you care about? And so they could start talking about themselves, and then you could sort of narrow it down to whatever it is, whatever subject you wanted to learn more about, if it was frozen vegetables or paint or shoes, and then ask questions about that. But not until you actually understood them and their lives and their needs and their desires and what made them tick. That has had an incredible impact on the work, I think, to find those truths about why something matters to people. It's trying to make them feel okay to say stupid things,
And it's their natural habitat. I would say next time, move to the kitchen. I think that's where everyone is the
Yes,
most
we've been
relaxed.
in kitchens too, and
You have.
I've been in all places. I've been talking to students in Umeå, nurses down in Karlshamn, migrants in different groups in Dalarna.
Some practical advice for the freelancer listening right now. Now, they're sitting with an idea that they're too scared to pitch. What would you tell the listener? How do you cultivate uncomfortable thinking as a daily practice?
Expose yourself to uncomfortable ideas, in the sense that you're looking at what others have made that have been uncomfortable or that has been unconventional, and it makes you want to do it yourself as well. And then the practice of when you're trying to come up with ideas, to not think too hard about if it's a good or bad idea to begin with, but to just stay optimistic about the ideas that you're coming up with. Even if they're stupid, just come up with as many ideas as you can. And then there will be golden nuggets within those 100 or 200 ideas that you have. I think going to museums and listening to music and being exposed to different kinds of artistic expression will also be inspiring and push you to do things that maybe you can't see. So just exposing yourself to uncomfortable ideas in many different forms, I think, is important.
And then, of course, to get your book, Oh Shit, 150 Creative Ideas. There are some really cool things there. And there are some ads that you can actually go look at. And some I was happily reconnecting with. And, 15, 20 years ago, you would go to the movies 15 minutes early because you wanted to see the commercials. You would go there and you would look at Juicy Fruit, for instance. Others. They stick with you. Well, we're coming to the end of our show, where we shine a light on the creatives, freelancers, and solo entrepreneurs who make the world more colorful. And since we have a full-blooded creator joining us, we, of course, let you answer our 4 questions today, Patrik. Who are you and what do you do?
I'm Patrik, and I'm a creative and strategic person working in advertising and marketing communication. I've done this for 20, 25 years now for all kinds of companies, big and small, known and unknown. And I love coming up with ideas. I love being uncomfortable, because that's where the greatest ideas happen. And I enjoy also spreading the word. So that's why I write books and I teach as well.
But what's keeping you creating right now?
Just the excitement of knowing that there is an unlimited amount of ideas out in the world. It's just a matter of me trying to find them.
What do you wish more creatives talked about honestly?
I think the fear of not coming up with ideas. I think every single creator is nervous in the beginning when you have that blank page. Am I going to succeed this time? Am I just a hack? Do I not know what I'm doing? Struggling with that. I think that is something that we could talk more about, just to be helping each other out and not be so worried in the beginning of the creative processes.
And finally, how do you celebrate your wins?
Champagne or Prosecco or whatever.
So tell us, how can people find you?
I have a website. It's Lindkvist, PLINDKVIST.com, where I've gathered pretty much everything about me. You can find my book in bookstores in Sweden, online or anywhere from April and forward. And search Patrik Lindkvist on LinkedIn and you'll find my face somewhere.
Wonderful. Thank you, Patrik. We love what you do. Now, is there anything you'd like to add that we haven't touched on?
There was one commercial that I thought of the other day, thinking about this podcast as well and about mistakes and being uncomfortable. I think it was from 1995 or something like that. And it was with Michael Jordan, the basketball player. It was a Nike commercial where he was saying that he had missed more than 9,000 shots in his career. And he had lost almost 300 games and missed 26 game-winning shots. And that he had failed again and again throughout his life. And it was by daring to fail that he succeeded. When you're comfortable making mistakes, you're actually comfortable to succeed as well. Anything can be made interesting. If I can do it for ventilation systems, you can do it for anything, really.
Yes, thank you. Let's do some key takeaways, Maria, from this episode.
Oh shit is a compass, not a stop sign. That uncomfortable feeling, the sweaty palms, the racing heart, it's a signal that you're close to something that matters. Try to embrace it.
Uncomfortable is forgettable. 3,000 messages a day, and we remember too. The von Restorff effect tells us we remember what stands out. The same goes for your portfolio, your pitch, and your
loss aversion keeps us small. The more we build, the more we fear losing it. Recognize that pattern and reframe. Ask, what's the real cost of playing it safe?
And you need a safe base to leap from. Community and accountability make bold creativity possible. Share your scary idea with someone who gets it and find your safe launchpad.
Your faith needs to be greater than your fear. Colleen de Courcy had it tattooed on her arm. Jeffers said, whatever happens, you'll handle it. And Patrik writes, forget about it. Do what you want anyway.
And this week's tiny experiment is the Oh Shit Challenge.
Try a little something new. What can you make it do? Push a button, paint a sun, play, experiment, and have fun. Woo-hoo!
Susan Jeffers said, take a risk a day. And Patrik writes, don't wait. So here's yours. Find your oh shit idea, the one that makes your stomach flip, the email you haven't sent, the pitch you've been sitting on, the project you've been calling too weird. Say it out loud to your accountability partner, a friend, or just anyone. Make it real. That's your safe launchpad. And then just do it. Send it, pitch it, post it. Don't wait. Later means never. And share it with us. Tag us at Big Dreams and Little Things. Tell us in the comments. Please follow us and share this episode with a friend. And please, if you like what we do, write a comment because that means the world to us. Patrik's new book, Oh Shit, 115 Thoughts on Magic Communication, is out in April.
Yes.
Check it out at plindkvist.com. Get more creative community stories, tips, and behind-the-scenes insights by signing up for Backstage, our weekly newsletter. Sign up at ektahub.net/weekletter. And of course, we will put all your links in the show notes as well, so it's easy to find.
And before we go, Patrik, we have something that we always do, and it's the victory dance. And
Oh.
we're dragging you into this
Okay.
because showing up and being honest about our creative journey and sharing your oh shit stories with our listeners and writing actually a whole book about it, that's really worth celebrating.
Woohoo! I don't have any champagne, but
No,
we'll do
down.
that.
We
Oh,
don't have
just
any
dancing.
music either.
Ooh, I can dance.
The victory dance. Now, let's do this.
Yes.
Show up
Speak up.
and never miss the
The
victory
victory
dance.
dance.
The victory dance. Do
Thank
the
you so much,
victory dance.
Patrik.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank
That was
you.
amazing.
Thank you. That was great for me too.